Hey guys, today we'll be continuing with our C video tutorials. We'll be learning about arrays in this video, so we'll just do a code on arrays. So just to help you guys learn about arrays and array data structures. So I have my IDE open here. So we'll just import the statements or include statements. There's a standard header file, and then we will start with the main function. So we have int main, and then we have our square brackets, and then we'll initialize an array here. Int array of size 50 elements. We'll have a size variable, a variable named I, and a variable named largest. So just 4 variables at the top, and then we'll have a printf statement. And we'll just call a new line, /n, and then we'll have enter the size of the array. And the semicolon at the end, don't forget that, and then we'll call the scanf function. We'll pass in the %d modifier, and then we will, at the end of the string, we'll pass in the memory location and %size. And here we'll have a printf statement with a new line again, and then enter %d, format modifier, and then elements of the array. Shift semicolon, then end of the string, and then we'll pass in size. So here we'll loop through with a for loop, and we'll have I is equal to 0, I is less than size, and then I plus plus. And we'll call the scanf function. To take the input for the array, we'll pass in the %d modifier, format modifier, and then we'll pass in the array memory location with n %, array of index I. And here we'll say largest points to array of index 0. And below we'll loop again. I is equal to 1 this time instead of 0. I is less than size. I plus plus. We'll say if largest is less than array of index I. And we'll set largest to point to array of index I. At the bottom we'll have another printf function call, and then we'll say printf new line. The largest element present in the array is. We'll pass in the format modifier %d, comma, and then we'll pass in largest, the variable largest. So the variable largest is storing the highest value in the array. It's saved to the memory, and then we will finish the string with a semicolon, and at the bottom we'll have return 0. Actually, we'll also print out the elements of the array, so we'll say printf the elements in the array are, the string. We'll have, yeah, that's fine. Then we'll have a semicolon, and then we'll loop again, so we'll say for I is equal to 0, I is less than size, and then I plus plus. We'll say printf, we'll pass in %d, and then we'll say array of index I. Save that, it should be fine. And then at the bottom we'll just, don't forget to return 0, just to satisfy the return type. we'll just save that, and then we'll set some breakpoints at the top. And we'll just click the debug icon in the top right corner. Okay, so now we can see our local variables at the bottom. So we have an array of 50 elements. It's just initialized to garbage values, so all these extra numbers are just garbage values. And we have our size array, which our size variable, which has a garbage value, int I, which is they've just been declared, so they haven't been initialized yet. Excuse me if I said initialize, so they're just declared to garbage values right now, so we stepped over that, and we'll just step over this. So this time in the output, it says enter the size of the array. So here we're going to take the size, we're going to have to pass it into the standard input. Actually, I apologize. Let me just change my run configurations to run an external. So you can do that by modifying, so clicking the settings tab here, if you can see that. On the side panel, there's a settings button, so you can click the button and click the modify run configurations. I don't know if you can see this window, but underneath in the edit run configurations in your project name, below the environment variables, you can check the checkbox run in external console, hit apply, and then OK. Save that and then just re-debug that. And the output window, it kind of looks like a command prompt window. It comes up in a side window. So hopefully you guys can see that. So when we step over this string, the string should come up into the command prompt window. So it says enter the size of the array. And then if we step over this, it says it's waiting. So this line executed, it's calling the scanf function. So it's waiting for the size of the array, so we can just enter like 5. And it says enter the elements of the array. If we step over that line. So now we're gonna enter the for loop here. So if we step in, if you look in our local variables, I is initially 0. So for the array of index I, it's waiting for a value. So when we step over this and we enter a value, it's going to be saved to array of index I, which is 1 in this, which is 0 in this case. So array of index 0 will be set to the value we enter. So we just enter the value, whatever value you want, and hit enter. And it's going to loop back to the top. I will equal 0. Now when we step to the bottom, I will equal 1. See if you can see in the local variables, it says I, which is an integer, points to 0. So if we step in, you can see I was incremented by 1, so I plus 1. Now in the index of 1, of array of index 1, it's going to wait for another value. So if we step over this, you can see that it's waiting for another number. So we can enter another number and hit enter, and it's going to be saved to array of index 1. And that process is just going to continue until the end of which is less than the size. So our size was 5. So the loop will continue to iterate until 4, because once I is equal to 4, that's our last line to execute. So once I is equal to 5, is 5 less than 5? It's not. Therefore, this condition would be false, and the execution would get skipped to the next line. So we can just continue with that and then just step over, enter the rest of the values. Okay, so once I is equal to 5, as you can see, the condition was false. So at this point, then the whole loop was skipped. Then we're now at line 10, so largest points to array of index 0. So our value largest right now, it's currently pointing to 0. So if we open our array in the local variables, you can see index 0 to 4. We have our values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now largest will point to array of index 0, so largest is going to point to 1. If you check the largest variable now, you can see that it points to 1. And we're going to loop again. And we're going to skip the first index, so now 0 is going to become 1. So 1 is less than size, which is 5. So for I is equal to 1, I is less than 5, I plus plus, and it's going to, that's true, so it's going to step into the loop, and it's going to check if largest is less than array of index I. So array of index I is 1. So is 1, so if largest, which is pointing to the value 1, which is less than array of index I, which is 2. So is 1 less than 2? 1 is less than 2. So therefore largest would point to array of index I, so it'll point to the other value instead. So if you see this, it says largest points to 1. Now array of index I, which is array of index 1, it points to the value 2, so is 1 less than 2? It's not, so then this line is going to be executed. Largest points to array of index I. So array of index I is array of index 1, which is 2. So it's going to set largest to point to 2 in memory now. That line was executed, and it's going to continue that process over and over again. So at this point, I was 1. If we step in here, it'll add 1 to 1, so 1 plus 1 will become 2. So now I is equal to 2, so it's saying if largest, which is 2, is less than array of index I, which is 2, then largest will point to array of index I. So if largest, which is 2, is less than array of index 2, which is 3, so that's true because largest is less than array of index 2, which is 3. Then largest will now point to array of index I, which is, since I is 2, then largest will point to array of index 2. So the value at array of index 2 is 3. So that process will continue, so hopefully you guys get the idea, so we'll just skip through that. We'll just continue to iterate through the loop until the condition is false. Okay, now in our external window, we can see that the largest element will be printed if we step over. And then we have the statement, the elements in the array are, that'll also get printed to the external window. And you guys hopefully understand for loops now, so the same process is just going to happen. It's going to print out array of index 0, array of index 1, array of index 2, array of index 3, all the way to 5. Sorry, all the way to 4, which is less than 5. So if you see in the external window, the values will be printed if you step over. And that process will continue till the end of the array. And finally, at the end, we'll return 0. So that's the end of the code, so hopefully you guys understand. So we'll just move on to another code now. So in this code we can practice command line arguments. So what are command line arguments? Command line arguments enable us to input values before the code has been run. So in command line arguments we have, it takes two parameters in main, int argc, so argc, comma, and then it takes a character pointer array argv of empty array. So when you take command line arguments, you can run them with the commands like gcc space dash o, lowercase o, so that you can run them through the commands, or you can actually just click the settings icon. You can modify your run configurations, and you can actually click the program arguments text field. So what you can do is you can separate your arguments with a comma. So here we can have we could just have test, so we can just input the string test here. We could click apply and then hit OK. So I'll just erase this code that we wrote, and we can just write another one. Actually, I'll keep the header file and the main function itself. So we can go back to main and we can input the two parameters. So the function takes two parameters. So it takes an int argc to argc. So what does argc do? Argc counts your program arguments, or it waits for the command line. It counts the number of command arguments that you have, and it should always have one, because the character string of array index 0 pointer will always just point to will hold the file name. So here we'll have the character array with a pointer. We'll say asterisk, and then we'll call argv, and then we'll just have an empty array. So here we can just call the printf function, and then we can say the value entered is, and then we can pass in the %d modifier, comma, and then we'll call the, actually we'll have to import another header file to call this function, so we'll say hashtag include, and then we'll call stdlib.h, just so that we can use a few more functions for our command line arguments. So the value entered is %d, and then we have the end of the string, comma, and then we'll call the atoi function. So it's ASCII to integer. So it's ASCII character. Basically, that just stands for the ASCII character index to integer. And we'll pass in the parameter argv of array index 1, so it's going to check because remember, array index 0 is the title. So it's not the title, well, it's the program name, the file name of the program itself. So this one's main. I just called it main, so we'll just see that it's called main. And then the command line arguments themselves actually start at array index 1. So array index 1 is I can just write that out for you guys. So we have array index, so argv of array index 0. So that is the program name. And then argv of array index 1 and so on. So the next values after that, 2, 3, 4, all the way to however arguments you have. Excuse me. So that will hold the arguments from the user. And just a reminder that argc is just the count of the arguments itself. So argc is the number of arguments. So the number of arguments that the program is holding itself. So the value entered is %d, and then we have our end of string, comma atoi, passing in argv of array index 1. And at the bottom we'll have another printf statement here. We'll say the next parameter is float and value is %f. New line. And we'll say atof. Which is ASCII to float this time instead of integer. And we'll pass in the value arg v of array index 2. And at the bottom we can just have a return 0, just to satisfy the return type. Okay, so after that we can just test the code by just running it. Or we could set some breakpoints here as well. So we'll just pull up a definition for you guys. So what is ATOF? Or ATOI. So the function ATOI is a C library standard function. Int ATOI converts the string argument str to an integer type int. So following is a declaration for the ATOI function. The parameters are str. This is the string representation of an integral number. The return value is this function returns the converted integral number as an int value. If no valid conversion could be performed, it returns 0. So it just converts the type of the variable itself. So with ATOF, I believe it's the same thing. It just converts, instead of an int, it just converts to a float value instead. So we'll just hit the debug icon just to start. And just a reminder, in my run configurations, I just had test as my program argument. So there should be no value for the second argument, or the second program argument parameter. So we can see that argc is holding a value 2. argc is holding a value 2 because we have the program or the file name for the first value, which is 1. And the second value is the other string that we entered, which was test. So that would be saved as the second value, so that's why we have 2. And then our pointer to our character pointer, argv_array, is holding the memory location of our program argument. So we can see that whoops, I have it on 2 different lines, or did that do that automatically? It says that the value entered was 0 because it converted our test string to an integer that just got returned as a 0. Because remember, in the Atoi function, for the return value, the function returns a converted integral number as an int value. If no valid conversion can be performed, it returns the value 0. So that's why we got the value 0. So then we have the printf. The next line is printf. The next parameter is float, and the value is %f. So it's going to check if we have a second command, which we don't. So the value is also 0, but 0.0 with trailing zeros because it was a float. So hopefully you guys understand that. We'll just try to change our command line arguments. We could maybe perhaps just output the, see if we'll, actually that's alright, we'll just, you guys understand. So we're just taking a test parameter. So if we could add 2 of them, so we can have, if you modify your run configurations, you could put test. I'm not sure if it's a comma or just a space, so we could just try 2, test comma test. It might just be a space. So we'll just save that and then rerun it. So now we can see that our argc value is holding the value of 3 because we now have 3 command line arguments. We have our program name. We have our first command argument, which is, I entered test if you can't see it, so I just went like this, test, comma test, in our run configurations under program arguments. So we have our title, we have our program name or title, then we have our two command line arguments, so that would be 3 in total. That's why you're seeing the value 3. And it's just going to convert that, try to convert that again, it's just going to return 0 because it wasn't a number. And again, the value was 0, so you guys can see that the argument value itself changed, so it was incremented by 1. So that'll just conclude our code for the arrays and the introduction to command line arguments. So if you guys like the video, you can like the video to support the channel. To support more programming videos, you can subscribe if you want to see more programming videos, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.